Hello and welcome to the Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora, and this week, as I do on each week, I will be exploring topics that involve the process of coming together of formerly divergent realms. So we are literally giving birth right now. I've been doing this radio program for, maybe about 2 years, and I've done a series of recorded videos, an online class, and many other videos for about, 3 or 4 years. And all of that is very much like when you are preparing a garden. You don't just throw down a bunch of seeds and think that everything is going to grow. It's necessary first to prepare the soil and make sure that everything is ready so that when those seeds are planted, they actually have the nutrients to go where they need to go. So all of that backstory of creating videos and other radio broadcasts has been preparing the ground for these new seeds of ideas to be planted, and to germinate and sprout into this beautiful new garden that is going to be a totally transformed society, a transformed surface of Earth and Earth culture and approach to life and experience of being human. So the good news is that we've been under great duress. That's why I also use the analogy of birth here, because I haven't given birth personally with my physical body, but for observing it in my friends and other women, it seems like at times it is very, very difficult. It's very painful, and there's uncertainty about how to proceed, about whether things are going to be okay. There's almost always drama or the sense of, a crisis. But that's not true with every birth. So some births are wonderful, peaceful, in a jacuzzi with the aromatherapy candles going and some nice music in the background. And I use the analogy, some births are like in the Lincoln Tunnel. The cab didn't even make it to the hospital and you had to pull over to the side. So each type of birth has its own particular, tone or experience. And I really do sense right now in Earth events, even though I try to keep these broadcasts not too topical, so that they can be accessed, in any order and at any time. Like, these are here so that we can look back at this time with, the perspective of having gone through these experiences and understand what this was. So, yes, it's also meant to be inspiring and encouraging some lasagna food to inspire you along the way. And forgive me for the long-time listeners if any of this is repetitive, because try to think of it as your favorite song, like, oh, Aurora is describing that thing again. That's my favorite song to hear, because, again, I try to keep it so that it's like a fractal, a little time capsule. If a person chose only 1 hour of one of these broadcasts to listen to, that would have the major topics in there. So the major topic is a shape that I call the flying rainbow lasagna. Lasagna because the edge is curly, like a curly lasagna noodle. And it's kind of a lighthearted name for a very profound shape that allows us to combine formerly divergent realms, or to vibrate a membrane that used to separate two things and create duality, so that now we have non-duality. So I am not an apologist. I am not an apologist for demons or an apologist for satanic beings. And here I am not a biblical literalist. I'm not describing Satan as anything that derives from the Bible. The term that I'm using is misinterpreted here in this, cultural context, but I'm referring to a space race, like a particular race or grouping of non-terrestrial beings that use a particular type of technology. And the technology that they use is not based upon energy that is an electron flowing in a wire, as Earth's terrestrial surface technology does right now at this moment, like my iPad that I'm using to record this, and probably whatever functional, device you're using to listen to it, that all runs off of electrons. However, this extraterrestrial malevolent technology runs off of distorted DNA, trapped and victimized consciousness that is distorting the time field. So now we need to understand that our DNA is not just something that dictates the shape of your nose or your eye color or foot length, but instead it is the integument that ties together moment to moment. Like, you have a body of 1137, you will have a body of 1138. You're not in that body yet. The thing that gets you into that body is your DNA. your DNA and its dance movements, because DNA is not a static X-shaped chromosome. It's only that when it's packed up for its transport or mitosis, when most of the time it is unfurled as chromatin and it vibrates like a string and it dances and swoops and knots itself into crochet hooks and then unknots itself and uses enzymes to splice it and twist it and turn it all around. And the flying rainbow lasagna is my own unique new dance movement that I do with this particular body. So I'm also a walk-in, I'm a galactic walk-in. That means that I'm an abstract presence that is from the galaxy. I'm not originally, from Earth, even though I'm very much entwined with the events here. Like, I'm here because I care about this place. I'm not here like some kind of an external carpetbagger, like, oh, look, I can swoop in and do what I want. No, I'm not an opportunist at all, and I'm not a body snatcher. This all is about consensual agreement, and the values system that I derive from has as part of its foundation freedom for all. So the value system is based in unconditional love. That is the gas that makes my star vehicle go. And that is what I would recommend if you want to interact with stellar beings. Choose the ones who run their vehicles or their vessels on nothing but unconditional love. They are the ones that are interesting and healthy to interact with. The ones that appear to fly in clank-clank metal spaceships or use external technological accoutrements, their technology is based on, as I said, trapped and victimized consciousness. So if you were watching one of my live videos, then I would take out paper and pencil and I would draw the time vortex for you. And we would get a graphic depiction, because so much of this, I try to paint a picture with my voice, but it's like fighting with one hand tied behind my back. So if you can, go to my website, flyingrainbowlasagna.com. You can check out my artwork there, and you can also link very easily to my Facebook page and also my YouTube. And my YouTube has many videos that show this in example, and my Facebook, I've been doing a bunch of live videos, which are a good way to connect with people, because this is all about, like in the garden of humanity's mind, I would like to make the seeds of the idea of the flying rainbow lasagna available to anyone who would wish to plant a lasagna tree in their yard. That this is optional, not mandatory. That's the whole idea. I'm not a body snatcher. I'm not here forcefully imposing my will on all of you like, some kind of overlord. Humanity's got enough overlords. That's the whole point. You've been invaded. You were invaded about 10 or 20,000 years ago. It was horrible. It was the primary trauma that we are all now recovering from. So revelations that are presently coming out in mostly the alternative media, not yet in the mainstream media, about what is being called Pizzagate, or the understanding that there is human trafficking and satanic ritual abuse and pedophilia at high levels of not only the United States government, and that's both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, and also the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CIA, that it is a concerted effort amongst the entire, you could call it, ruling class to draw energy off of the innocent, we could call it victims, or the people who are abused, the young people that are abused, that it is draining of their life force energy. So please now understand that one's human sexuality is one's connection to both the divine, like that which is higher in consciousness, and also to Earth. And Earth has her own divinity. Earth is a person, and her creative energy is also, we could call it divine or sacred, meaning that it's supposed to flow in certain patterns. When I say satanic, I'm referring to a type of energy and technology that distorts the time field away from the pattern that it is supposed to flow in. And that pattern is itself divinity. It's a pattern, I call it like the great musical score of the cosmos, and I imagine that there is a great composer, even more of a genius than Mozart or Beethoven or the best musician you could ever imagine. And they are also a conductor. And they created the musical score, and they are here conducting all of us as musicians in this symphony, and our bodies are our instruments. And our genes are like the vibrating strings that make the music of our bodies. So I'm sitting right outside of my garden on a very rainy day. If I were over by my studio with my musical instruments, I'd play a little bit of music to illustrate the idea that we are literally musicians making music, and we are all affecting one another. So that is the idea of the ethics of being here submerged in time. It is absolutely appropriate for each one of us to either send out our thoughts, send out our emotions, use our voice, like the flapping of my moving mouth parts, what I'm doing right now, to gesture and to dance, to paint or to write, to play music, like all the things that are about sending out energy. Because guess what? Lots of other people are sending out energy to you. So now I'd like to give you some good information about what's going on right now in terms of this birth process, that for a long time humanity has not had access to its higher faculties. I call the higher faculties, or I define them as everything that is perched upon unconditional love. So in like the ladder or the shape of our chakras or energy centers, we're climbing a ladder coming from the base of our spine to the top of our skull, and we start with red, and red is the physical, and orange is the emotional, and yellow is the conscious daily waking intellect, the hacked human operating system, and a lot of people have just defined that as humanity, but we also have this larger apparatus up above there, if you can reach unconditional love, which is the goal of most forms of meditation and mindfulness, the cultivation of energy to get to the point of unconditional love. It's like achieving a particular level of metabolism, energetic metabolism, where what you ingest is equal to what you are excreting. So in our biology, if we achieve homeostasis, that means that you're not getting fat and you're not getting skinny. You're eating just the right amount in order to support the activities of your body. And this is what we're supposed to be doing in time. We are supposed to be like Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man, chomping these little white dots as we move through time, and we're supposed to move at exactly the right rate, not grasping in anxiety towards the future, and also not being held back and limited by our memories or emotional residue of experiences in the past. We're supposed to move at exactly the right rate. And when we do that, our bodies literally emit a tone, like a musical tone, like la, a lovely musical tone. And that tone is the food or the fuel for higher dimensional beings, the ones with whom you would actually wish to interact or engage or share your ideas or have any impact on your body or your biology or your health. And that's what I say, like we are in a cosmic symphony, we're all affecting one another. So now I'm going to describe, there are these beings that have invaded Earth and the human genome, and they exist as like a type of overlay on the human genetic music. And so begin to think like in abstract terms, non-literal terms, that the invaders might not have a face. And boy, isn't it harder to face an adversary that doesn't have a literal face, that might actually be internal or unreachable. Like, who do you point your gun at? Who do you point your arrow at? How do you point your finger and say, there is the enemy? So the enemy is an energetic overlay that has been, or the adversary, that has been placed on top of the natural music of your DNA and the earth music that is supposed to be expressed through one's genes. And Earth has her own dream. Earth has her own creative energy and her own desire to be free. And Earth is an incredible artist and musician. Like if you just look at the natural world and, the formation of plants and animals and natural, like hot springs and trees. I mean, there's so much artistry here on Earth, and that is with all of the inhibition to the time field, the distortion of the time field. Just imagine the profound elegance of the living artwork that we are a part of, that its potential, what it could be if we were managed to retune the human instrument of your body so that it no longer had this invader overlay. And the invader overlay, think of it like static on the line, or like a bunch of sour notes that are being played in the symphony at the same time that the musicians who are highly trained and who know the musical score are trying to play the right notes and be in tune. So this is how I define divinity. These are musicians who perceive the musical score of the cosmos. They can tell it's going to be a D flat coming up. There's no question about it. It's written in the musical score, and everybody plays a D flat, and that is going along with the great composer. And again, I am not here in order to advocate for some kind of mental slavery. I'm here to advocate for freedom. So it's not like saying you have an overlord who imposes upon you that you must play a D flat. No, it's not like that at all. It's really understanding that in order to be part of the cosmic symphony and sound good, you as a little puzzle piece have to fit harmonically into the whole. And I call this being a good artist. Like if you came upon a bunch of musicians collaborating, or if you came upon a mural where a bunch of artists were collaborating, and you're like, in order to be a good artist or musician, you can't just completely do your own thing and steamroller over everyone else's expression. You have to integrate with what is there. So that has been my challenge, integrating my energy into this human context, into this human body, into this human social and economic context, and also integrating the Flying Rainbow Lasagna into the collaborative artwork that has already been going on for, billions of years. That involves the laws of physics and all of the other living beings that have ever existed. Those are the previously established facts or statements of the math proof that I, as a good artist, am not allowed to contravene, or as a good mathematician. So I created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as my contribution to this symphony, or to this poetic language of vibration, and it does not go against any of the other previously established beautiful truths, like empirical truths that have been established as part of this realm. And it offers a solution to the difficulties that have been presented from the perception created of duality. And duality is thing versus thing. And I'm usually an abstraction. When I came into this physical body, I really noticed the difference. When you're in the physical body, everything about your perception is based upon comparing two objects. You have right eye versus left eye, and you calculate the minute differences on a moment-to-moment basis, and this is how your brain and system of perception creates depth perception. And even the contrast in our retina, the way that we perceive light, is based upon perceived contrasts of edges, where we pick up the edge of one object in order to separate it apart from its context. So all of this is about saying thing versus thing. And I'll even go further into your epidermis. Your epidermis is a very solid boundary that says everything that's inside of this is me, everything that's outside of this is separate from me and is not quote-unquote me. And that would be a very different definition. You'd have a different viewpoint if you were a cloud being, if you were made of a ball of gas, and if you had a much less clearly defined boundary about who you are and who is your environment. So all of those biological aspects create duality, and biological aspects have certainly colored and informed the perception of higher dimensional reality, the story that humans use, or the narrative structure that humans use in order to understand why things are the way they are, good versus evil, and this whole idea. So that's another construct. Just like we create the ego, narrative structure, sense of self as a construct that separates you as an identity from the rest of the world, humanity has created this artificial separation of good versus evil. Now, I said, I'm not an apologist for evil. I'm not an apologist for demons. And no one gets to take the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and use it out of context, and distort it in order to try to apply it somehow, for eugenics or some kind of malevolent agenda to kill, mutilate, or destroy. It's not that type of thing. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the new shape that allows us to transcend duality. This is how we win the war. We stop fighting these individual battles. Again, I'm not telling you to be a passive doormat and a victim and lay down your arms and stop fighting. No. I'm telling you to use the lasagna as a tool to fight effectively. That we can transcend, for example, the duality of our physical vision when we activate our higher faculties. This is known as your third eye. It gives you a higher perspective that is beyond the material and breaks the limitations of thing versus thing. So here's another, we'll do some mental yoga, stretch the mind. The binary system is a perfect example of duality. You have either a 0 or a 1. And in the human realm, that is where we are basing, for the most part, the digital world, like the world of computers and the artificial intelligence realm, has mostly been based upon 1s and 0s. And again, this is not evil, it's not satanic, it doesn't have to be out of shape of the musical score of the cosmos. It all depends on how it is applied. So I'm being really impeccable with that understanding. But I bring up binary because it's part of the secret as to how you get out of duality. You have either a thing that is on, meaning the number 1, or a thing that is off, the integer 0. And if you only understood that those were the only two options in the world, you would think the only options are either the integer 0 or the integer 1. It means you can never count above the number 1. However, if I asked you to tell me how many options there are available in the binary system, you would easily be able to tell me, fill in the blank, 2. There's 2 options available. So even though you only have the number 0 and 1, you internally know you can count to 2. There's 2 options. There aren't just the numbers 0 and 1. There's more than that implied by those 2 options there. So then once you have added 1 and come up with 2, you can do that endlessly. You can add 1 again and come up with 3, and add 1 again and come up with 4. This is how we break out of that cycle of duality. So we're here understanding at this moment that there is a genetic overlay of bad musicians who don't have their own instruments anymore. They don't have their instruments because they got kicked out of the band. They're very poor players. They had to turn in their tubas. That means they died. Basically, if you're a good musician, you get to live forever. If you keep on playing the right notes with your body, you can continue to live eternally. And of course, your body will transform. It might not keep on looking like its present form or acting like its present form, but you can keep going, as opposed to the beings that came here, invaded the human genome, and basically caused the invention of death. And I speak about this extensively. I did the whole galactic history, recorded lessons and webinar, and that's part of what I've been sharing live on Facebook, that humans need to know, Earth's surface humans need to know the backstory of how come there are occupiers of the interstices. Why is death a reality on Earth in the physical realm right now? All of this death is a distortion of the time field. Death is the aberration and the thing that is not supposed to exist. And when we get into the shape of a person's life, it is a time vortex where you, as the awareness, are supposed to be free to choose your trajectory. And you can move around through the time vortex without hitting the membrane of death, that you can make different choices, and if your higher faculties are activated, then you can see through time. And this is part of resolving duality, that you can begin to see all of the multiple possibilities and iterations in life and make appropriate choices that move you towards eternal life and towards following that musical score of the cosmos. Most of humanity has been flying blind, and this is why everybody keeps crashing into the membrane of death, keeps dying, circulating back to the beginning, a la the brilliant, profound movie Groundhog's Day, and then trying it again within the same life, being incarnated many, many, many times. So I'll even give a brief pop cultural shout out to the TV show Westworld 2016. Very worthwhile. I watch almost, very little pop culture TV and stuff like that. This one came up on my radar, and it's profound and very well done, and will probably connect with some of your own inner realizations about the truth of life. Basically, the idea is in that show that there are artificial humans or clones or replicants that are reprogrammed, according to which storyline, which narrative storyline they will be experiencing. And this is very similar to the idea of going back to the beginning, getting a mind wipe, recirculating, and trying again until you find the right set of thoughts and experiences and actions that will unlock this level of reality for you. That when you play the right notes and make the right music here in reality, you don't have to be in this level of limitation anymore. And that is my definition of ascension. And that ascension does not mean a literal floating upwards, the biblical literalist rapture. And I'm not mocking or casting aspersions upon your earth religion. I understand that there is a very, like a naive beauty in wanting to believe in this, the idea of floating out of here, because guess what? This is a very dark place, especially right now, that the events that I see and the tone of like the psychic weather report of what is happening right now, this is the end of November 2016, it is profoundly dark. And I do these radio broadcasts to give you some hope, because even though the loudest musicians might be the worst musicians, that you are really perceiving really sour notes, especially when we begin to perceive the acts that distort the time field. So these are criminal acts on a cosmic level. It's not merely like if you break the speed limit, that is an earthly law. You're not breaking a cosmic law. But if you murder someone, then you are breaking cosmic laws, because what you're doing is like snipping a time thread. And the time field is analogous to a big living embroidery, a three-dimensional embroidery. It's complex and beautiful. And your genes and your timelines are like a thread. And if somebody's thread gets cut, like artificially, if they're supposed to be continuing to be alive for many more years, but they're artificially murdered, then that's like cutting a thread. And on a sweater, you can cut maybe one thread, you start to cut several, the whole thing starts to unravel. And this practice of dark magic, or the distortion and unraveling of the time field, it's been going on for millennia. This is not new. However, let's say there was a big gamble by the beings who would like to fully control and distort the time field. Very recently, in November of this year, what just happened, they, gambled big, they risked it all and lost it all, because they do not now have the capacity to distort the time field that they once did. And all of this is because of awareness, that their power came from secretly abusing, sexually abusing people, and then mind wiping or creating consciousness shields. So this is like a splitting of the personality. You could think of it in psychological human definition terms as disassociation, but I'm speaking about it more profoundly on an energetic level of a bifurcation of the basic like soul or persona or personality, that a person gets fragmented on a deep level when this type of abuse happens. And it's done intentionally. And that if it is done enough, a formerly human container can pretty much become almost totally wiped of its human vestiges. And when I say human, I mean the connection to creativity. That is what really, I don't define humanity as like a physical body with some mammalian emotions and then a little bit of cognitive thought on top. I define human as having a connection to the divine source of life. Like, that's the difference between you and a cyborg or you and an iPad. If I break the iPad screen, I got to go to Apple and have them install a new screen. But if you get a scratch on your epidermis, you don't go back to like the factory and get a new epidermis installed. You have the power to heal. And that is profound. That's amazing that you can do that each one of us that is alive can do that. It means you can make new cells. And we also, as alive beings, that means we're good musicians who follow the musical score of the cosmos as we're supposed to. We can create. We can do some jazz improv. And that's also how I describe, like, this is not like being a slave to an overlord. When you play in the great musical conservatory, you are actually free to improvise, but you got to be a good jazz improviser. So, like John Coltrane, he's amazing. He's an amazing jazz musician of the 20th century. And in his music, what he would do is first start out with, like the basic notes, if it was whatever, D, A, C, and then within that basic framework, create all sorts of wonderful, innovative patterns so that he never played the same song, exactly the same way. He would tap into that really cosmic flow of creativity and have it flow through him. And so within the framework, find total freedom. And that is how I approach my visual artwork. Like if you check it out at flyingrainbowlasagna.com, my artwork is very symmetrical. My artwork is very symmetrical, and it has, this regularity and this pattern in it that I do not find to be toil or drudgery at all. I actually find it to be freedom within that pattern, because when I first got here and I didn't have my math skills and I didn't understand geometry, it was actually harder for me to express what I saw with my inner vision. I wasn't drawing and measuring everything out. I was just doing it freehand, and the end result of my paintings and drawings were not exactly what I saw inside. And it wasn't until I actually learned some geometry and got the tools to measure and, protractor to make perfect circles, that then I started to really be able to make what I saw inside. And I found a freedom at expressing that pattern perfectly, and then I found that I could explore all of the wonderful ways that the pattern fits together like a puzzle, that it's how I still approach my daily art making, that it's like a puzzle to unlock, and there are even always more Easter eggs or breadcrumbs. It's like a little trail of discovery that the more that you keep delving into this pattern, it's fractal, and you can keep going, delving further and further at a finer and finer scale, and finding more and more wonderful realizations. And so, this is just my personal approach to artistry and to life and to the cosmos. I don't resent, the divine. I don't resent that pattern at all. I embrace it. And I find, in my physical body, if I do certain movements with my physical body, my body feels healthy and vital. This is the idea of, yoga or Tai Chi or any energy cultivation dance movements that we can do. And, of course, if you do certain things, it's the antithesis of that. It makes your body feel uncomfortable and bad and leads to disease. So I've learned that if I do certain things with my body, then my body feels healthy and vital and continues to stay alive and go further. And I don't find that to be a burden to do those things, like to exercise or to stretch my body. This is okay, if you want your instrument to sound good, this is what you have to do. You have to tune the guitar strings, and whatever. If you have a brass instrument, you have to polish your instrument and clear out the spittle and all of that stuff. This is what we have to do, and I don't resent being here. And it's different. I know I've met some other walk-ins and some other people that are like, oh yeah, being in the physical, this is such a chore. It's so hard to be in the physical body. And I'm like, no. This is actually a fun, thrilling adventure. Figuring out food and figuring out the best way to eat and digest and figuring out the best body postures and how to live in a good way. That's all a fun adventure. So we are also going to redefine what it is to be in the body, because the whole idea of the Christian rapture is the idea of leaving the physical. You're leaving your physical body, you're leaving physical earth, and I am really promoting the idea of transforming the physical earth and transforming our physical body. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, this shape allows us to bring together formerly divergent realms, such as the realms of spirit and matter, or we could call it, according to Einstein, energy and matter. That Einstein gave humanity this 20th century perception that energy and matter are constantly in dualistic conflict with one another and are somehow separated from one another. And this new dimension that we are giving birth to is a dimension where energy and matter are seamlessly intertwined. And the result is your perception is changing. As we begin to enter into this new world where one's higher faculties are activated, one will be able to perceive the non-physical energy beings that are in existence, such as the ones who invaded the human genome and have been working at high levels of government in order to, ritually abuse children and distort the time field and keep themselves empowered, and also the other energetic beings who are in existence in the cosmos, because it's not just malevolent occupiers of the interstices. Those are the bad musicians that are playing some sour notes really loud, and so the attention is there. There's really good musicians. We could call it the advanced band. They all graduated from this level of reality, and they are playing the most sublime music you could possibly imagine. And I absolutely aspire to, collaborate with them and to be a part of that music. And that music doesn't have to exist elsewhere where we travel to it. We can bring that music here. That I'd like to plant the seed of the idea and see it grow into a beautiful tree, that we don't have to dispose of earth, like disposable Kleenex, that we can transform just like people's bodies. I think people still have this impression of like, you're going to die and you're going to get rid of, quote unquote, your physical body, this horrible, choreful, smelly thing that you have to carry around, and then you get to be free and go somewhere else. And I have experienced like real transformations in this physical body. So part of it is the flying rainbow lasagna oscillation maneuver of the genes. When I first came in here, I've been here about 15 years, there had to be profound immediate cellular changes. And all of that would have been way too much for these cells to handle. The cells would have just decomposed and died. It would have just been too much. So there was like a force field of grace that was placed around this physical body to give it time to transform, so that the cells wouldn't all die before they figured out how to be a flying rainbow lasagna and connect to the divine and be sustained, on this new level, to do this new dance. So it took a little while for them to get the cells on a cellular level to get their momentum and be able to be a flying rainbow lasagna. And now my body is well established, and I've been able to do things that would be considered impossible in terms of healing. Like I told you about having math skills or not having math skills. That is because, the events that killed the previous occupant caused a lot of brain damage, and that the intention was for this body to just be like a vegetable, like a non-conscious body, certainly not walking, talking, and, doing complex math computations. And so it has been through changing and transforming with the flying rainbow lasagna and applying that to the neurology of this body. And that process also took many years, that I was able to learn math, and I did it all through a visual sense, like putting together circles and visualizing it. And that's the genesis of my artwork, really, my visual artwork. And through applying that, understanding to the rest of the world. That I didn't just lose my math skills permanently. I found a new way to do math, and the way that I do it now, it's faster than the clunkier old way that used to be taught. So I figured out a newer, better, streamlined version that works for me. So I'm using this as an example of like very great unlikelihoods, that you could say, if you kill a person, it is a very great unlikelihood that instead of dying and decomposing, that they would instead transform into a flying rainbow lasagna, and that the cells of the body would also transform like on a subcellular level. So I'm saying, like, I use my body like a template, an example of what is possible with the human form, that we can take the flying rainbow lasagna, any one of us, and apply it to the previous formation or shape of the genes, the former dance, and transform by dancing in a new pattern. And dancing in a new pattern means that each person gets to achieve their greatest potential. So whatever healing is necessary inside of you in order to unlock your talents and skills, and also that each person would be connected to the divine directly with no intermediaries, so that you would get your own moment-to-moment guidance about what thoughts you should be thinking, what actions you should be taking, what your creative output should be, that you don't have an externalized God or an externalized religious or government figure or social figure or mommy or daddy telling you what to do at each moment, but that you take full responsibility and express from your internal connection what you need to be expressing. I gotta tell you, my boss, my cat, is driving me crazy. She keeps on asking me to go in and out. It's a rainy day and she can't decide which side of the door she wants to be on, and that's why you're hearing all of these pauses and breaks in the broadcast I'm trying to do. So don't blame me, please blame my boss. So a big part of this battle or spiritual unfoldment that we are experiencing here is perception. That if humanity can reactivate its higher faculties and be able to perceive time and accurately perceive the genetic overlays, who is actually acting through a particular genetic song and dance movement, then humanity can be free. That it is only because humans have been blinded, and this is the basic backstory. Humans used to be beautiful, divine creatures who lived on Earth and ate nothing but sunlight and were totally connected to the stellar network. And then humanity was degraded into its present format by genetic invaders who took away your higher faculties, and they made it so that you couldn't see their faces. You couldn't see who invaded you. You couldn't see the way in which you were being oppressed, and they even created systems of overlordship or oppression that are known as government and religion and the money system, which has been turned into the banking system. That all of these things that humanity on Earth's surface presently takes as just the normal part of mundane life, that these are all overlays to the natural structure that humans would have experienced without invaders of consciousness. So your physical body format and biology changed from, you would have been light eaters, now you had to be physical object eaters. And you changed from being what we would call, a form of like self-government, because of course it's not necessary to tell someone what to do when they have their own innate divine connection. That is what it was like before the genetic squashing, into a form of overlordship, where humans have been domesticated, like a domesticated dog as opposed to a wolf, and then kept on a leash. And your government is what keeps you on a leash. So now you have to understand that human government has not been run by humans. Human government has been run by these overlords or invaders of consciousness. These are the beings that are called like the royalty, the royal family. That's not actually a human or terrestrial origin, and that those beings have been here exploiting Earth's people, Earth's resources, and the dream of Earth for a very long time. So when I first came here as a walk-in 15 years ago, of course I had all of these perceptions. That's the first thing. I turned on the television and I saw what was going on. It was October 8th when I came here of 2001. So all of the events of 9/11 were very fresh. The fabric and the rip in the fabric of time from that was very fresh. And that was all being shown on TV. And I looked on TV and I was like, there's a lot of demons here. And I started to share my perceptions with other people, that I saw that this was demonic activity, and those other people treated me and perceived me as an insane person. And then I understood what was going on here. I understood there was a mind control spell, that humanity could not even understand or perceive the chains or the shackles that were holding it back. And so, my approach initially in the early part of being here was simply to make artwork and to emit my vibration as much as possible. And that's like preparing the ground. For 15 years, I've been here emitting this vibration, and there's finally growing and burgeoning consensus, because many, many people now are activating their higher faculties, and they are literally perceiving what I call the occupiers of the interstices, but these are literal demons, or like reptilian energy overlays that are infesting certain humans. So some formerly human containers, like one face, two arms, two legs, might look like a human, but it has been changed and distorted to such a deep level that we can no longer define it as human. And that process of changing and distorting, that is the fracturing process that happens through participating in ritual sexual abuse. I apologize, truly. I know this is a dark topic, and also it can be a trigger for some people, or make them feel so uncomfortable emotionally that they cannot even ingest the information. So I'm not here like to confrontationally or adversarially make people feel uncomfortable. I am here to put the spotlight on, this is how you win. You have to take away the source of fuel for the malevolent beings. The source of energy for the dark magic or malevolent extraterrestrial technology is, the abuse, the life force energy that is distorted by distorting the boundaries of the chakra at the base of the spine, or the energy center that is the connection to the physical level, and that is the connection to sexuality. And it's necessary to have that connection healthy, not only in order to procreate, but also in order to do almost any energy work and to have, healthy vitality in the cells of your body. So attacking a person's sexuality is attacking them on the foundation level of who they are, and it is attacking the foundation level of the time field. This is all about, those feelings of love and attraction and romance and partnership and boundaries, healthy boundaries. That is all supposed to ensure that the right partners are selected for genetic, intertwining, that the act of sexual procreation is about twining together various genetic lineages. And when that is done without consent, when it is not done as consensual partnership, so if it's rape, or if it is done with a partner that is not even appropriate for procreation, like a child that has not even achieved sexual maturity, that is a distortion of the time field. And the energy, the boss is talking over here, the energy that the malevolent extraterrestrials use in order to run their distortion spells, like it is a way of making something happen that is against the intention of the divine musical composer of the cosmos. They get that energy from, literal murder and rape and sexual abuse. And bringing those activities to light and stopping them means that you're cutting off the source of energy for this technology. And I'm telling you that at this moment, in November, almost on the cusp of December 2016, the source of energy for these dark magicians on Earth's surface has been cut off. And so they can't perform their mind control spells. They cannot keep humanity blinded and bound or unable to speak freely about what is happening. And so what you're seeing is an explosion of private researchers, citizen investigators, and citizen journalists who are all working together like a big brain. I've seen amazing collaboration on some of these online message threads where people are voluntarily doing the work that law enforcement should be doing in terms of researching whatever information is available online, like through the digital world, to see if it is possible to bring criminal charges against people who are practicing sexual abuse and to fully bring to light these practices. Because also it's very similar to in a family when a little child reports that some boundary has been crossed by an adult, and many times the other adults don't want to believe it. They don't want to believe Uncle so-and-so or Aunt so-and-so or Grandpa so-and-so could do this. But these things really happen. And so the power has come from it being hidden for so long. The power has come from humanity's eyes being literally not able to perceive this. Now humanity is able to perceive this. People are literally able to see who is human, who has a divine connection, and who is not human. That would be defined more like a parasite, a being that doesn't have their own connection to life force energy, but like a parasite or like a vampire is taking energy from others. And I've described this to the poor me. They'll say, poor me, it's not my fault. I'm stuck on the interstices and I have to do this to stay alive. It's not my fault. But when we find out the galactic history, the context, the backstory, the truth is they are in their position as an end result to a set of life choices that they made. They got kicked out of the band because of their life choices. They'll be like, poor us, poor us. No, not poor you. You played your instruments horribly. You weren't even supposed to be here on this planet. Now you're still stuck on the interstices and still making everybody miserable. So I came here as a Flying Rainbow Lasagna in order to end and reduce suffering. That's why I don't advocate violent beheadings. I don't advocate eugenics, just rounding everybody up and chopping off their heads. That does not actually solve anything. So the brief how we solve everything is the Flying Rainbow Lasagna has two points on it that represent the vibrating singularity or convergence point. That it has two different positions. Actually, it can have 360 or 1,000,000 different positions, but in this sculpture, it has two different basic positions, like it's oscillating up and down or back and forth. And those two positions represent energy and entropy. So on the one hand, we have consciousness that is being refined towards the point of total energy. And this would be considered infinity. Infinity is the place where everything is. All energy, all awareness, all consciousness, everything is from there, everything is going back there. And then we can also consider a place of total entropy. That this is science now. When we take matter and bring it down to its coldest possible point, like a tiny bit above 0 degrees Kelvin, means there's no more energy, there's no more movement, there's no light, there's no awareness, there's no heat, there's no consciousness, there's no energy there. Matter starts to do very interesting and fun things. The atoms start to smear on top of each other and act as if they are all one atom. This creates a super dense form of matter known as a Bose-Einstein condensate. And this form of matter is achieving unity consciousness, or infinity, in the opposite direction. So we have two different ways to achieve unity consciousness, or to go, quote unquote, back to the source. One of those ways is by achieving total energy, getting more and more and more refined, getting less dense, getting more light, and getting more energetic, and keep going in that direction until you're just totally all energy. And then there's another way of doing it, which is to lose all of your energy and to devolve and to get so cold that you eventually achieve unity consciousness with all of the other beings that have also totally lost all of their entropy. All of their energy. They exist in a state of total entropy. So this flying rainbow lasagna shape is the graphic depiction of how both good and evil can be subsets of God or unity consciousness. And it helps us to understand that some pieces of consciousness, they are moving in an opposite direction or a different direction from where you're going. You're like, hey, we're supposed to be going towards refinement. We're supposed to be getting more and more divine and more organized and more light, and have less friction and less entropy in this system. And some beings are like, no, that I'm doing the opposite of you. I actually want to have more chaos and less order and less light and less consciousness and less awareness and more entropy. And the idea of the flying rainbow lasagna is that both of these directions lead towards unity consciousness. And again, I am not a demonic apologist. I am not trying to say that it is good to be evil, and you can't apply the flying rainbow lasagna in that way. When we look at the flying rainbow lasagna perspective, it is like getting up above the right eye versus left eye perspective, and we start to see the time field and the higher dimensional perspective. This does not excuse or justify behavior. In fact, with the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna, we now have a tool or a maneuver for those beings to actually clear the interstices, for them to no longer have to be disconnected from the source of consciousness, that those beings now can choose to eat love as their food, and they don't have to be a vampire eating rape and murder as their food. So that's the big thing. They'll say, poor me, don't blame me. But since 2001, they've had options. And so it is possible some of them can choose to convert and transform and become love eaters. And some of them are like, no, we choose not to. We are unrecalcitrant. And that's their choice. This is the whole idea of love, the stance of unconditional love. If they don't want to change, they don't have to change, but they can't keep murdering and raping in order to barely, stay alive through vampire and that type of distortion of the energy field. So those beings will be placed in a state of total entropy. They will lose all of their energy. And that's like being frozen in time. It's like you don't have any more energy to even move in time anymore. So I'm trying to give you the idea of what's the resolution to all of this? It's not taking out a machine gun and shooting everyone that you think is evil. That's actually just going to create more fatty deposits on the interstices. We need to send the ones that wish to go back to the source or be connected to love, get an opportunity to transform, and the ones that choose not to transform get to lose all of their energy and achieve a state of total entropy, which makes them in part of unity consciousness, and also makes it so that they are no longer inhibiting the time field. Because now I'll just share in this last few moments, I feel like I've been here for 15 years just doing dirty laundry. Like, I'm an artist, I want to collaborate with other artists and musicians and do some really cool, fun projects, but it's kind of like I walked into the studio and everything is just a mess. It's like, we got to clean up. There's not a table. We can't work on anything. I can't set up a canvas. There's nothing over here, no room. So for 15 years, we've had to do a lot of cleanup and haven't even been doing the fun stuff yet. And I'm here, like, as the last moment here, let's have some good positivity, because we are just on the verge of finally being able to do the fun, collaborative creativity. Or like when I need to do a painting, spend a lot of time actually making the panel, sanding it down. It's like sweaty, dirty, messy work. But then when the perfectly clean white surface is ready, then I get to dive in with all of the color and all of the creativity and all of that fun part. So, we've been spending all of this time just preparing the surface, just preparing a perfectly clean white canvas that we can really paint on. Now, this moment is when we are finally beginning to use the paintbrush of our minds to paint the reality that we really wish to be a part of. So take heart, feel good. It's been great duress and very difficult, but we're here. We're at the moment where we finally get to paint the reality we wish to experience. So I implore you all to use your paintbrush or your pencil with an eraser, use the instrument of your own body to play the music and the song that you wish to play. Use your mind, envision the reality that you wish to be a part of, and put your energy into that reality. This is the battle. The battle is a battle for freedom of expression and for your own willpower and for Earth's willpower to be expressed in an unfettered way. So thank you so much to everyone who is with me on this journey. I'm meeting and interacting with beautiful, wonderful people. I feel wonderful love and energy from you, and I send love and good energy back to you. Thank you, and please continue to dance like flying rainbow lasagnas.